course, XSplit doesn't allow me to take and post to social media till I have the stream up, so stand by while I go over here and use my tools. Share your stream, and it'll make me jump through a bunch of stuff here, and we'll say, I've got to give it a name. I'm going to say Flying the Twin Comanche Part 2. And we hit the share button. And it says it's successfully posted over on my Facebook page. So I'll go over to it and see if it's lying. And it didn't lie, but it didn't put the link in either. So let's take and kind of catch up with that. We'll take and do it again. So it's Flying the Twin Comanche Part 2. Add stream link. There it is. And share it now. And let's go refresh the Facebook page. It's amazing how all this stuff works, but only if you know Chinese. Oh, that was funny. And maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Don't get on me about not liking the Chinese people or something. It's just like, it's one of them things. All right. So anyhow, we left you last night flying into a snowstorm. I don't know what I'm laughing about because most people probably wouldn't like to do that. But I think the rest of this flight is just really kind of neat, and it's just like life in general. You run into the neatest things sometimes by accident, because sometimes, you'll be out there blasting along, and you're thinking life's so boring, and I've done the same thing a million times, and everybody's an idiot. You know the drill. And then all of a sudden something happens, and you get done, and you get back from it, or you get through the experiences. My God, it's so neat to be a human living on Earth. Well, here we go. I'm going to get this thing cranking. Okay, I got to get over here. Of course, XSplit's so easy to use. And, of course, I never read the manual, so who cares? Here we go. This is where I left off last night. We're in the middle of some weather. We just did shot an approach into Freeport, an practice instrument approach, but it was VFR. And on the mist, we noticed that we had a couple of puffy clouds underneath us, and now we're starting to drone along, and I think, at this point in time, we're solid IFR, which the IFR stands for Instrument Flight Rules. You may have noticed in the last video I mentioned VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules, and basically what Visual Flight Rules mean is that you can see the horizon, you can see the ground, you can see and avoid other aircraft. What instrument flight rules are, basically they say we're going to stick you in a cloud and you better read all your instruments on your panel to fly where you're going, because you can't see anything out the airplane visually, and you're controlling the airplane solely by the flight instrumentation in the airplane, and you're also navigating by that too. So it's no big deal. You sit in an airliner and they'll shoot approaches day in and day out, and they have what they call Cat 3 approaches, which means it can be pretty bad and they can still see enough to get on the ground and land and get you to Vegas. Okay, because isn't that the only thing we use airliners for? Is we use them to go to Vegas, to go to LA, and to go to Florida. Otherwise, we don't use them, right? That makes sense. That makes sense to me. So, anyhow, what we're doing up here, and you see I just keyed up the mic there with my index finger, so I'm talking to Rockford Approach. Rockford Approach does service the approaches into Monroe. They're the radar facility for the area, and they're able to take and watch the progress of the airplane. and they are also the controlling authority, so they give you your clearances, and also so you check in after you do your missed approach that you're on the mist. They pick you up. It's kind of neat as we're droning along in the clouds how this whole thing kind of works. You know, it's a little different now with the days of radar, because they are allowed to take and work more airplanes on the approach, because they can see positively on radar separation. But basically, when they clear me for the approach into Monroe here, I'm it. I'm the only airplane that's got that airspace to take and shoot that approach and attempt to land. Or if the weather is low enough that I cannot shoot the approach and get to a point where I can visually land the airplane, I will do a missed approach, and I have to go back to the controlling authority and contact them and say, you know, we missed the approach. And then the very next thing is, and you should always be ready with an answer for this, they're going to say, what are your intentions? Okay? And a lot of times if you do the missed and you're an old dog, what you're going to say, yeah, we just missed the one here at Monroe and we'd like to come back to Rockford. Then they don't have to ask you what your intentions are. You've already told them what you did, what you want to do. Okay? Makes a lot of sense. It's the whole trouble with flying is a lot of people like to overthink it, and it's pretty logical. And I don't want to get on my soapbox because I think there's a lot of stupid things in the ATC system now, but most all of it works real well, real logical, you know, provided you know, you take and you keep track of what's going on, and you know, you have your situational awareness. You know, be aware where you're at, which heading you're going, what altitude you're at, what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go. And by the way, while this is all going on, keep track of both engines, make sure that they're running properly. Sounds like a lot, but actually it becomes very smooth and very easy with just very little practice. It takes very little serious practice. And you should be self-analytical. I mean, you can come in from a flight, and I've always beat myself up. I've always came in and said, you know, that was really great, but I could have did this better. Okay? And that's the attitude that will keep you alive in an airplane and keep you out of trouble. You never give up. Always work on trying to take, and whatever you're doing, try to do it better. There's always room for improvement. I don't care how many hours you are, how many ratings you got. You know, in particular, I know I could take you out in a Twin Comanche and take you to your limit of what you're able to do. So anyhow, we're shooting along here. One thing you need to really note really carefully, if you look over at the red stripe on the left nacelle, see that snow going by? Now, you look over at the airspeed, and, you know, we're doing, you know, 150 knots, and I'm seeing snowflakes pass between me and the nacelle that's 2 foot away. That will tell you one thing right now. This is some pretty heavy snow. But why is that really important? Well, if you're in the snow and you can see visible snow, and if you look at this, the further we carry this approach on, the harder it is snowing. I mean, it is snowing, you know, really big time right now. And what happens is the mechanics of the atmosphere at this point makes this very, very important. And I'll tell you why. The snowflakes come out of a cloud, and the cloud usually has moisture in it that is sometimes below freezing. It's what they call supercooled, okay? And it's just straining to make a snowflake just as hard as it can, and because it wants to. The water's below freezing. It says, I want to turn into ice, okay? And if you're below the cloud that's making this snow, of course you're going to see the snowflakes. They're going to be zipping by the cow, right? And, you know, if I can read the altimeter, we're at 3,000 feet, so we're not really high. So this cloud that's cranking this snow up is actually above us, and it's pooping out the snow, okay? Why is this very important? Well, let's say that, you know, we're in higher elevations or whatever, or we just simply want to move on up to 4,000. And I can guarantee you on this particular day, 4,000 would put you in the cloud. When you fly through that cloud, okay, it no longer, the air that impacts you no longer cares about making a snowflake. What it does is it takes and the snowflake it was going to make, when that molecule hits the wing of that airplane, it instantly freezes into ice and it leaves it on your airplane. So there's a big difference. You can drone along in snow for literally forever and not have to worry about any real icing other than possibly induction icing, where you suck enough snow into your intake for your engine, where that could be an issue. And we have controls on the airplane that are alternate air source that will allow us to open up another opening and let air into the engine without worrying about, you know, the ram air effect of the snow. So we've got something that will handle that also. But and the one thing about this, in the daytime, it's actually a little harder to see, but you can have the same condition at night, and all you got to do is flip on your landing lights, and it looks exactly like driving in heavy snow when you flip on your high beams in your car. You see all the snowflakes coming at you, and you know you're flying in snow. If you happen to get up into that transition, you get into that cloud, and you flip on your landing lights, you will see it looks like you're driving in fog. And at that same point in time, you can look up here, the lower area of your windscreen, and you will start to see ice form. You see ice form there, you see ice form on the leading edge of the wing. Right out here on the tip of the spinner, you're going to see ice forming. So a little bit about winter flying there, and of course, you know, one of the things we got to talk about right now is if we get into these conditions, and if you can take this flight and think about, you know, what we're actually doing. And I think, yep, we're 2,600 right now. I got the approach plate out here for, yep, we're at, actually, I think we're at the final approach inbound right now, and we should be starting down soon. 2,700 foot is our limit there. So you might see us descending here shortly. And I don't want to miss contact in the runway, but we're talking about this, and even if you're instrument rated and you get into this situation, I mean, what are your options? You know, what's the minute you encounter these conditions, what's the first thing that you do? And probably no instructor's ever told you this whatsoever. But the first thing you do is you relax. You relax and fly the airplane. You know, nothing's going to happen that's going to take and cause you severe problems. Any fast, even heavy ice, you got 5 minutes. So stop, relax. Make sure that your scan's good, the airplane's stable, you're flying it, you know, the way you're supposed to fly it. And basically kind of, you know, set back and say, ha! Well, I've gotten into some weather. Next thing is, you know, everything's under control, and you say, okay, for the conditions I'm in right now, you know, what are my feelings? And we've started down on the approach. If you can watch the altimeter there, about mid-panel, we're starting to crank down. So we're heading down. Knows my airspeed. It's my charter pilot days. I do everything fast. So the first thing is, you know, am I comfortable with the conditions I'm in? And comfortable mean, does the airplane look like everything's running fine on it? Do I feel emotionally comfortable in this situation? If you're not, you turn around, you head back to that good weather. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing at all. So, I think I got ground contact. Okay. And you can just see the lower left nacelle here there's a road. So we busted out, I think, at about 1600, 1480 is the minimums here. So we're at minimums. Drop below that because I do have runway environment at this point. But you can see our viz, we don't have a mile visibility. But once you can take and you have that ground contact and are familiar with this airport, you know, you're going to continue to descend visually till you take and you can see, you know, the final runway environment. So we're just bopping along here, and I'm still really watching my altitude because I don't have any horizon out there, but I'm still, you know, I have ground contact, and we're going along. And I think we're probably here within about 15 seconds of flying over the end of the runway. And basically no real reason to go ahead and land. There it is. There's the runway just on the corner of the screen. There's a taxiway off to the left. And we've got the runway, but we're going to go, so what we're going to do. We're going to power up. Hear the engines come up. We're going to pitch up. We're going to go up. And we're going to clean up. And we're not in a big panic to do anything at this point in time other than just fly the airplane. Want to get out of the dungeon, want to get away from all the trees, the towers, the hills, everything else. Want to take that airplane back up in the air. And you notice my rate of climb there, I don't mess around. When you're down here in this situation in real IFR, run that airplane at its maximum performance to get yourself up where you're good and safe again. And this goes for situations where it could get critical. If you go to do a mist and for some reason, you know, you launch an engine on that mist, you're going to want the most performance you can possibly get out of this airplane to get you up in the air and get you back where you're safe again. I believe we're going through 2.5 right now. It's kind of hard to talk to Rockford any lower than that, so I punch it at 2.5 and I call them on the missed approach. And they'll give us, you know, our clearance back, I believe, at 3. I think they probably just gave me a heading right there. I turned the heading bug. So, we just shot and did a missed approach in a raving snowstorm, and you can see we're still in the snow. You can see it between the cowl and the airframe, and I'll tell you, when you can see snow against your pinstriping there in the cowls, that is some heavy snow. And, you know, we virtually flew into that within like 4 to 5 miles. It was just perfect. It just set over Monroe for that approach. Like I say, you couldn't have ordered this up better for a training situation in a twin Comanche or any light twin. I mean, and you know, boom, throw my hands up in the air, and why? And that's the other thing. I used to be a big macho guy about saying, oh, hand fly it all the time, you need to practice, blah, 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 blah. And what you can do is most modern airplanes have great autopilots. And I've changed my thinking on autopilots for primarily one reason, and that's just safety. If you are single pilot IFR, especially in a light twin, you know, that's a busy environment. And it used to be, you know, I'm macho. I can fly the hell out of this airplane. I don't need the autopilot, you know, I'd rather do it myself. But you punch that autopilot on, and it takes over the job of flying. And what does that do for you? That frees up horsepower in your brain. So in other words, if you're wondering, let's say I shot this and then all of a sudden, you know, I got to go to an alternate and the alternate's going down that I picked. And I may decide to, you know, maybe that's not a good idea to head to that alternate. I better start really contemplating a new alternate. And I'm going to start getting weather up. I'm going to start looking at the approach plates, minimums at other places. And I'll tell you what, punch that autopilot on and use it. Punch that autopilot on get back into your plate, start taking and doing some real analytical thinking. That's really what flying's all about. I mean, you can have a seat of the pants ability, but when you get in an airplane, it's about analytics. And it says, you know, what decision am I going to make next, and what are the ramifications of that decision? You know, if I've got a real burning need to take and make it to some airport, and everything just keeps telling you it's getting harder and harder and less safe and less safe and less safe to get to that airport, you better start taking and working your options to go to another airport. And I mean, and when you start checking the sequence reports and everything, and I think that nowadays it's ridiculous. Before you had to take and switch frequencies, get on flight service, start asking questions. And now with all the onboard weather stuff, it's all on your iPad, and you can simply sit there and click away and find out everything about every airport, you know, in the whole continental United States. It's all at your fingertips. So open that stuff up and start looking at that information. Don't worry about your heading and your altitude, because your autopilot's doing the job for you. So, you know, not saying that I couldn't take and hop in an old Twin Beach with nothing and fly it around all day long. You could, but I'll tell you, it's a safety thing. You can be much safer if you utilize all the resources that your modern aircraft has in it. And that includes the ADS-B, the online weather, your weather graphics on your iPad. You have weather graphics in the cockpit. Heck, when I used to fly charter years ago, the Weather Bureau didn't have color graphics. They had these things that were printed out on some kind of fax paper that nobody could understand. So, I mean, it's an awesome time to have an airplane or fly as a pilot, because all of the tools and everything are here now, and it's almost just like you know, Star Trek. So boom, so I blabbed for a little while, and look at this, bam, we're out and we're over a scattered deck, okay, and we're on our way back to Rockford. And so we were just, you know, and this is something to realize, and it's kind of rare. Weather is usually more general in this, but this shows you what can happen. We went from good VFR into a raging snowstorm with an approach to minimums, and back to good VFR in what? 15 minutes? Let me look over here. I can probably tell you. 20 minutes and 8 seconds. So the flying environment is very dynamic, and maybe that's, you know, one of the things why I still love flying so much is it's always a challenge. The environment's dynamic. It's always interesting, you know. And you know, sometimes I'll say, you know, you want to just go blast up and down the Mississippi and look at barges. Well, no, I don't. I actually like a flight on a day like today, or like this day, when, you know, there are some challenges and some unexpected things, you know, that can crop up. And I've had stranger things where, you know, came back to Rockford from Appleton, I think, once, and it was VFR up there, and I checked Rockford, and it was, you know, VFR, but I got up on top of a deck, got down there, lo and behold, Rockford was IFR, so I said, well, VFR on top, like approach into Rockford. And they took pretty good care of me. They vectored me on the approach and then forgot that I existed and let me fly through the approach, and then asked if they wanted to take me around, and I said, nah, it's okay. And we re-intercepted, and we got inside the marker, and they handed us off, and the approach controller says, I'm very sorry about that. And I said, look, don't worry about it, everything's cool. So anyhow, we're back out in the open, and we're what is that, 70 miles visibility or something, high overcast. So once again, it's like anything can happen at any time, and but the tools nowadays in the cockpit, compared to when I was a kid flying Twin Beaches and Queen Airs, there's just it's unbelievable, the technology and everything that's available now. And of course the non-TSO stuff like the ADS-B, the Stratus receiver, and the iPads and everything. These things are absolutely the bargain of the millennia. I mean, in the old days, if they had that technology, it would cost tens of thousands of dollars if you wanted it in your airplane, and it's just hundreds of dollars. That's the old saying about aviation. In the old days, it'd say, get into aviation, just carry hundreds around, because everything's in increments of hundreds. And of course, the technology that you see that we're riding in right now, let's face it, the engines and basically the engine systems are 1940s technology. What you find is the people that are in the money now all fly turbines. Very few of them ride behind piston airplanes anymore, which kind of makes this kind of almost antique in nature, but it's still good, viable transportation. And once again, a Twin Comanche will hustle you along near 190 mile an hour on 16 gallons an hour. A Baron will give you 190 knots and burn 32 gallons an hour, 32 to 34. So, out of all the twins out there, the most economical is a Twin Comanche. Even Piper later came out with the Senecas, heavier, slower, bigger engines, burn more fuel. And so these airplanes are highly sought after, and the one problem with Twin Comanches is there's a lot of them out there that are dogs. I mean, they would take a lot of work to really bring up to where they should be standard-wise, and I was fortunate enough to find a very nicely equipped airplane. The only thing, and I got a good deal on it, but my engines were run out, and over the first period of 5 years, I literally had to put 2 new engines on this. But now, it's a very low time airplane, and if I mentioned before, I did upgrade from a Garmin 530 to an Avidyne 540 for my primary GPS navigation, and the 540 is a full FMS, and I virtually, my navigation system in this thing is virtually the same as it's in airliners, and it's sweet. I love it. I think it's one of the greatest boxes that was ever been built. If you look over just to the left window there, about mid-range, you can see the, I believe that's the smokestacks of the Byron nuclear plant. So we're heading right now towards the southeast, and they're going to take and provide us vectors for the GPS 7 in Rockford. Now, that's the same kind of instrument approach that we just shot now, basically up at Monroe. The only thing is, in Monroe, we virtually couldn't see anything till we were on top of the runway. So now you get to see how the approach actually looks when you can actually see where you're going to be landing. So it's kind of a lot slicker in that regard. And by the looks of the smokestacks at Byron right now, I'd say we are literally within about 2 or 3 minutes of making our initial turn onto our initial approach segment here. And I think they gave it to us because I just keyed up and told them something, and the airplane starts to turn. So I acknowledged the heading that they gave me, and I've started to turn towards our inbound heading on the approach. Looks like we're still at 3 though, so we're still at our vectoring altitude. And you can see just above the left engine there, that's the Rock River as it comes down out of Rockford and heads around down towards Byron. So I never did go back in my logbook and look up to see, you know, what date this was, but it had to be around the seasonal changes. I mean, there's no snow on the ground, but we flew into a raging snowstorm. So I might go back and look that up sometime, maybe post it on the comments on the YouTube video. And we're getting a little more heading change here. And if I can see the HSI from here, I'm going to play around and maybe even get a GoPro and set it up so you can see the instrument panel a little bit better. And you know, drop me a comment too if you like these. I'll keep making them. If nobody really cares about them, then I'm just going to go out and enjoy myself, because you drag a camera along and everything else, and you know, it always takes up time and effort, and you gotta you know, it just turns into a little bit larger fire drill than it normally does when you're going out for a flight. And I keyed up and answered something there. The other thing is, of course, you can't hear any of the audio in the cockpit, and they got systems that I can hook into the camera into our intercom system. And then what was really nice is I could still talk over, you know, the cockpit conversation, but then you could really hear and understand exactly what was going on in the airplane, and each time, and you could also hear air traffic control too, so you can hear the other end of the conversation with what everybody's doing. So once again, you know, we're on the approach, and that's one of these things where when you first are flying, and especially when you first really start into your instrument training, it seems like the workload is overwhelming. And actually, things happen pretty doggone slow in an airplane. It's just that you really need to take and be one with the airplane. You know, situational awareness, know where you're at, where the airplane's at, what the heading is, and you know, basically keeping your airplane, you know, controlled well, holding your headings, holding your altitudes. And then after that, it gets pretty simple. And you can see that instrument just right above the left handlebar of the yoke there. That's our CDI, and that tells us, that little bar in there will go left and right, and that tells us how far off course we are on our desired center track to the runway. And you can see it's locked right into the center. And we have made a descent from 3,000 down to 2,500. I think you might even be able to see the glide slope come alive on it. That instrument I'm talking about is the HSI, stands for Horizontal Situation Indicator, and that gives you lateral feedback on where you're at course-wise. And if you look right up in the corner, left corner of the windscreen, there's the runway. And it's just and we're just right straight down the center line of it. The HSI also, when we get up there, gives us glide path information, which is the little bug that's to the right of the CDI bars there. And I think we're coming right up on the glide slope right now. And normally, once your power's set and everything else, the way I instruct, say, get the speed that you want, everything locked up. When that glide slope centers, what you basically do is throw the gear out. And what that does is the gear gives you enough drag that you really don't have to adjust power or anything. And bam, you're on it. You'll see to the right of the HSI, our vertical descent there, we're heading down now. And that's why we're capturing that glide slope. We're getting a little bit low on that. I may not be the one flying this approach, I don't know. But whoever is doing a good job. So anyhow, what would be happening would be just like at Monroe, is, you know, we see the ground and everything here, but we are virtually in the same relative position up at Monroe, but we're in the snow, and we didn't see anything. And if we take ourselves to minimums here in Rockford, I believe, I'll tell you what, I'll look up the plate. I've got it right here. We'll see what our 7 is here. And we're looking at approaches, R&A 7. 942. So when the needle on our altimeter points straight up, that's 1,000 feet. So we basically, I can tell you at which point we could still be in the clouds and still be perfectly okay to land. So and we're descending to 1,100. Basically, we got 150 feet more we can go into clouds, and we're all done. (1,000 feet). We now have 50 feet. In our airplane in this approach class right there, we'd have to see the runway right there in order to take and legally land. Or runway environment. It's a long story. Now, the last thing I'm pretty proud of is everybody says these Twin Comanches are so hard to land. That's not true. They're hard to land smooth. But let me show you something on a Twin Comanche. That's how hard they are to land right there. That was a grease job. And landing on 7, I just let it, I stay off the brakes, save the brakes, just let it roll out. There's thousands of feet to get us to the Gulf taxiway. It takes us back to Teeter Hangars. So I just let it roll out. And there it is. I don't know if anybody finds a more interesting flight than this on YouTube, I'd like them to take and send me the link, and I will post it, because I'm always looking for neat flying videos, neat skydiving videos. You know, they all take and you know, fascinate me. But this is something that I threw together quick. I had the mount for the GoPro, and it's a little suction cup, and we take it into the wind tunnels. I stick it on the side of the wind tunnels that I fly when we go indoor skydiving, and I just thought, you know, I wonder how that would work, and I just took it out and threw it on the window of the Twin Comanche, and I mean, everything was all by accident. Happened to take the camera, happened to get some real neat instrument flying. I mean, everything just kind of happened that day. The guy over there in the right seat's my son Adam, you know, and he stays pretty busy, doesn't get a lot of time to go flying with me, and it was one of these things like, well, let's go up and do some flying, and you know, lo and behold, we wind up having just a super interesting flight, and we wind up, you know, doing some really, you know, to be able to shoot that approach and have a minimums approach, and then turn around and, you know, come back and, you know, demonstrate, you know, a grease job in the Twin Comanche, and to document it. It's like a fisherman tale. Oh, this thing was 3 feet long. Yeah, well, where's the picture of it? Well, there's a Twin Comanche grease job, and I'll admit, they don't, unless you fly Twin Comanches every single day, that's not the normal landing. And even if you do fly them every day, you will get maybe 3 out of 4 like that, or maybe 2 out of 4 like that. And it's really got to do with the kind of the geometry, the way the gear's set up. And the normal landing in a Twin Comanche, you feel it, and it's just fine. But I'll tell you what, if you have a Comanche driver sitting in that seat with you, and you are flying, and you land one like that and just roll it on, he's going to look over at you because he knows what you just did. So anyhow, come back into Teeter Hanger and back home again, and just a excellent thing. And notice right ahead of us is the new Rock Valley Aviation Maintenance School without a roof on it. And it's all done, and people are in there learning how to fix airplanes now and everything, so everything's cool. And ARA, the big maintenance facility that's came in there behind the hangars, they probably should have said something about them. I'll bet you they hadn't even started construction. So here we are, and pull in, and we'll be shutting down radios and various things, and I bring them up a little bit, and I pull the mixtures, and when you shut down, to make sure that you have your airplane in a safe situation, is always mixture, master, and mags. And there we are. So, part 2, flying the Twin Comanche, and I will take, after we're done with the live feed here, I'll let YouTube get it processed, and I'll hang out here until it is, and then I'll take the actual live feed link and remove it from my Facebook feed, and I'll replace it with the permanent link. But I hope you enjoyed riding along with us in the Twin Comanche. They're absolutely an awesome little airplane, and unfortunately, they're out of the reach of, more people than they should be. I mean, in the old days, there was a lot more private flying and a lot more, private people, or, your middle-income people would take and, fly privately as a sport. And just due to the economic strains in the last 15, 20 years, that's kind of went by the by. There's still a group of us out there that, figure it's worth that income to take and enjoy the benefits of personal flight. I mean, we have less restriction on little airplanes in this country than in any other country in the world, and they're less expensive here than any other country in the world. So I mean, it's a great thing to have, and we have a great air traffic control system. We have great airports. We have great instrument approaches. I mean, everything is really geared to really have a lot of benefit for the private operator of aircraft or private pilot. Or you can be, as like me, I virtually do not fly commercially anymore other than flight instruction, but it's my passion. Again, it was at one time, and I kind of lost interest, and it's my passion again. And I'm out there to take and train you in your Twin Comanche with all the experience I have, to make you safe and comfortable in that airplane, and so you can take and enjoy and utilize that airplane to its utmost. And that's my goal. And it's also, I've lost a few friends in airplanes, and for a lot of reasons that should just not have happened. And I want you to be safe in your airplane, and fly it for years without you getting hurt or you hurting your airplane. And that's my goal, is to make this, to give you the most experience you can safely flying your airplane. So with all that said, you know, if you like this video and you want to see more, I mean, I can come up with some more great stuff. I've got a lot of ideas. How about in and out of 2,000-foot grass strip with your twin Comanche? Or how about, well, I can't say that. We'll leave that to some other time and space. But but I could show you some very neat things in twin Comanches. But anyhow, for another time and date. You know, have a great evening. We'll catch up with you later.